For a while now, I've wanted to find somebody who could speak to this topic that had written songs for the church worldwide, and I found just the person. Today I have a conversation on writing songs for your church with Matt Stinton. Welcome to Sounds to Live By, the show that helps you write genuine songs that benefit and connect with others. I'm your host, Kevin Keene, and this is episode 17. Today I'm excited we get to talk with Matt Stinton. He'll tell you a little bit about himself once we jump into the conversation, but Matt has been a worship leader for a long time. He was part of the Bethel Music label and has written a book called the Songwriters Advocate that we'll talk a little bit about, and then he runs an online songwriting school. So Matt has been in the business a long time. He's a songwriter at heart. He's a creative at heart. And he has a lot of good information to share with us today. Now, before we dive in, if you haven't got my killer melody checklist yet, I want you to go to soundstoliveby.com/checklist and do that right now or right after this episode because you're going to want to listen to this. But it's a free guide that just helps you craft better melodies. My gift to you. I want you to have it. All right. Now, here's my conversation with Matt Stinton. Cool, thanks for tuning in today, everybody. Today I have the honor and privilege of talking with Matt Stinton. Matt, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Hey man, happy to be here.
Are you doing all right with the quarantine and staying busy and motivated inside?
It comes and goes, motivation. So sometimes I'm really motivated to, play cribbage on my phone, and other times I'm motivated to get work done. It just depends on the day, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we're healthy. My wife and I are both healthy, and so is our dog. So we're all set.
That's what's important. Yeah. Well, I've been following Matt for a while, and I'm excited because he's also a songwriting coach and has a songwriting school that he runs and a book that he's written and has been a songwriter for a long time. Matt, why don't you give people a little quick background, kind of your story in a nutshell to help them understand who you are and what you do and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I started writing when I was a kid. I think I actually wrote my first song when I was 6 and kind of wrote off and on, through my childhood, but really fell in love with music and songwriting when I was a teenager, about the same time I discovered 90s pop music, and it just kind of was a catalyst, and full steam ahead since then. Kind of the typical story, did bands through high school, through college, and ended up eventually getting involved with Bethel Music out in Reading, was part of the label there for several years, and now I have parted ways with the label and flying solo, getting some music written, doing the songwriting school that I've started up, the Songwriters Advocate, which is also the name of my book, and having a good time with all that.
Awesome. So yeah, you're a seasoned veteran in the frustration and joy of songwriting that we've all, no matter what level we're at. I actually just had a conversation with Caleb and Will Chapman, Stephen Curtis Chapman's kids. I interviewed Colony House, and
awesome.
they were saying how their dad, Stephen, who has written I don't know how many albums, still
one or two
after decades of writing faces each one with understanding the struggle and the war and the frustration that will come as he gets into it. And so no matter what level we're at, we're all dealing with the same kind of approach to trying to find what is that next way to unleash that writer that's already in us. And today, specifically, though, with Matt, I wanted to talk about writing songs for your church and how a lot of churches and worship teams have yet to probably have the confidence or believe they can, but also yet to experience the value that comes from writing songs for your specific local body, for your specific church. And Matt, you've been a part of, different size ministries and have seen the impact on a large scale and probably on a small scale as well. So in your opinion, is writing songs for your church important for people to do? And, how would you recommend people that maybe have never attempted or maybe struggling on how to approach writing songs for their local body?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's really important. I don't think that it's one of those things. There's so many good worship songs out there and more great songs coming out all the time. You could argue that you'd be just fine without ever writing your own. But I mean, there's always good songs, but there is then about there's something about the local church that really can latch on to. And man, there's so many aspects of this, but they can really grab on to something that was written, for them, for their local body. Because if you think about it, people are very rarely anywhere on accident, you know, and even if we do end up somewhere on accident, the Lord's gonna use it. And so that means that anywhere that anyone finds himself on a worship team, in leadership at a church, whatever it happens to be, like the Lord wants to use it. And if you're there and he wants to use it, why wouldn't he want to use your songs too? And so I think I do think it's really important. And, at the same time, it can be a challenge to write worship music, because I personally think it's the hardest genre to write, at least maybe the hardest genre to perfect, because we're all writing about, the same God. Everybody's, and so it can definitely be a challenge. But I think that the Lord is on it, which is why more and more and more people are writing songs for their local church. They're recording, they're putting out singles, putting out albums. I don't think it's an accident. I think that the Lord's actually on it, because I think that there's something that he wants to do on a local level, kind of grassroots movements, that he's always been on those things.
Right. Yeah. And, from my perspective, I was worship leader for 10 years. I just stepped out of worship leading and was part of a small church, but we wrote all of our own music, and we used the popular songs as well, but we do our best. Like, my goal as the worship leader was always like, let's write a song a month, which was it sounds like we can do that, but then when you actually get into it, from inception to releasing it to the church in a month, it was like rarely did we actually get that accomplished. But we're always pushing towards that. And we just saw and they still use to this day songs I wrote 7-10 years ago there. And so to see the marking of time by those songs, of like a song that was written 6 years ago, and people remember like, oh man, for better or for worse, I remember that season. And that kind of is a time marking season. And we have that with popular, songs on the Billboard charts as well. We can remember, when Shout to the Lord came out and what season that meant. And so is there anything you have to speak to that, to capturing seasons in songs? And it could be for worship music or not. We were specifically talking about churches, but it can go outside of that. Do you see a value in capturing the season that people are in, and how does songwriting help to bring either a momentum, a movement forward, or also a memorial of something that someone walked through or a church body walks through? Anything you would have to speak to that? It was kind of a weird question, but
I think I'm tracking with you. And I think it really does come down to that the key word that you used there was a memorial. And I think that you look back on your life, everything that you've walked through, good or bad, it's all testimony of God. It's all testimony of what the Lord wants to do in your life, how he is going to redeem the time, how he did redeem, it's all of those things. And I think that when you look back on your worship songs, I mean, on a very practical level, you look back on a song that you wrote years ago, you can say, wow, I've grown a lot since then. And like my skill has grown a lot, and that's always encouraging, and hopefully, not too embarrassing to look back and be like, well, people are singing that song. But at the same time, it's always encouraging to say, like, to see that and think, I've grown a lot since then. So there's that. But no, I mean, you definitely, like, your songs are pillars and they're milestones in your life. They're milestones in society. They're milestones in your church. And I think right now, there's no better time to write. Out of difficult circumstances come great songs. And I think we're in a great position to write some great songs right now with everything going on, especially because, we all got so much time all of a sudden.
Yeah, a lot of time for sure. So what would you say, with it already being established? I love what you said that, you could go without writing songs for your church and be just fine. So there's no like special badge of honor to like churches that write their own songs, and if you don't, you're less than.
Right.
There's always, we're the global body of Christ. So with that being said, I love that you brought that out. But for those that maybe do want to, maybe there's a call that they should, but they feel inferior. They listen to, songs that are on the radio, on their, or that come down the CCLI, top 10, and they do at their church, and they feel like they can never measure up to that. So why even start? What would your encouragement be for those writers?
I mean, I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, particularly like people who are trying to get their identity out of what they do. You have to start somewhere. Like, you literally have to start somewhere. And a lot of people will sit down to write, and they start writing and they immediately criticize what they're doing. And that process of criticism actually shuts you down. It shuts down the creative part of your brain. Like there's science for it. Like they're competing parts of your mind. And so if you are criticizing, you're self-filtering, and you're actually going to start filtering out the good ideas along with the bad, because you've shut yourself down so far that nothing comes out anymore. And so you have to start somewhere, and you have to be okay with producing bad art to start. Like, if you're not okay with it, then you're either going to shut down your call because you just refuse to get over it. Otherwise, you're going to live a lifetime of frustrated, like, production. And so it's sort of the choice. Everybody has that choice to make. Are you okay with writing bad songs? So start, because if you don't write bad songs, you're not going to write good ones, because the bad songs are stepping stones. Even if you're lucky enough to write a good song your first try, that's going to be the rare exception. You're not going to write a good song every time you sit down to write. That's just it. No one does. I hear the story about these guys like, Joel Houston from Hillsong, and it came to me that he writes, or at least he did for a while anyway, wrote a song a day. That's 365 and occasionally 366 songs a year. If all of those songs were hits, he'd be putting out 30 albums a year, but he's not. So what does that tell you? Those songs aren't hits. He's writing a lot of bad songs because he knows that's part of it. He's a brilliant songwriter. When a song comes out, that's a highlight reel. You're not seeing all the crap that they wrote. You're just seeing that, it's like the Instagram thing. We see somebody, oh my gosh, look who they met. Oh my gosh, look what they got to do. Like, that's the highlight reel soon as that Instagram camera goes off, they go back to their lives and their train wreck of a life that, you don't see that, but you only see the high moments and you think my life's never going to be like that. So you're only seeing the high moments, and it's unfair for us to compare ourselves with someone else's high moment. We have to allow ourselves to have our low moments so that we can find our way to our high moments.
Right.
So everybody has to start somewhere.
That's so good, man. Yeah, I think being willing to fail at something, you can't really say you're called to something until you're ready to admit that you're probably going to fail along the way. And that I love what you started with, that if it's your identity, if you get your identity out of performing in a certain area, then you're already going to lose, because at some point someone's going to be better. At some point, even if you become great, there's going to be someone greater, and that can't be, we can't start there. And I love, that percentage of, if you write 365 songs a year and, someone's putting out an album a year, that's like 3 point something percent of 3 to 4% of those songs written are actually going somewhere. And so especially as growing songwriters, amateur songwriters, we have to be willing to put in the work of writing the 100 songs to get the 3 or 4 that are amazing. And maybe it's not that drastic of a percentage, but still writing enough to have that experience and have that time put in to create anything that's worth creating is going to take time to put into it. And it's being willing to make that investment. So
yeah. And that a lot of people get intimidated by that whole idea of having to invest. And in reality, like, start with 5 minutes. I remember for a while, my friend Hunter was writing, he said he was writing like 6 hours a day, 5-6 hours a day at one point in his life, which I heard that. I was like, that's why he's got more music out than I do, for one thing. But that's not everybody can dedicate that kind of time. And then a lot of people think, they get intimidated by, I have to be doing this all the time to make it work. And no, actually, all the time, regularity, that's really important. If you want to get good at anything, you have to give yourself opportunities to get better at it. But you don't have to write even for an hour a day. Start with 5 minutes. Everybody can find 5 minutes. Even if that 5 minutes is, to be a little crude, sitting on the toilet. Everybody has to go sit on the toilet, at least once a day. Go sit on the toilet, get out your phone, and start writing lyrics. Who cares? Maybe you'll write a whole album, Songs from the Throne Room or something. Who knows?
Yes.
Free inspiration. Yeah. Go forth and
thank you. We're going to make a meme of that little album cover, Songs from the Throne.
There you
go. Well, cool. I want to respect your time, Matt, and make sure we don't take too long on here. But anywhere you would like to point people, I know you have some really cool resources and some things coming up where songwriters can take advantage of some training you have to offer. So yeah, just tell them where they can go, find all your awesome stuff.
Yeah, well, the school's called the Songwriters Advocate, and so the website is the songwritersadvocate.com. We run 6-week schools several times a year. The April 18th, we're actually doing our first ever intensive, because so many people are stuck at home. They've got more time, or maybe less time because they're homeschooling their kids now. Or less money, and so we wanted to give an intensive, bite-sized version of the school. So we're doing a 3-hour seminar on the 18th, and it's a cool thing that we're letting people who sign up for that before the 11th can actually use their registration fee as a down payment on their tuition for an upcoming school. And so it's kind of the two for 2 for 1, but. So we got those things. We got the schools coming up, and we got that intensive coming up. And so songwritersadvocate.com is a great place to go. for all that info. But in general, I would just encourage songwriters, like, you've got songs in you, even if nobody else hears them besides you. You got to write them. I remember a friend of mine. I'll leave this as a little bit of a challenge, but a friend of mine, I remember leading worship with him at a conference, and he it was a morning session. So he came in the morning session and he said, "Last night I wrote the best song of my life. The best worship song I've ever written. And I was so excited to sing it today." And I was, getting the chord chart ready and everything. And the Lord stopped me and he said, I thought that this was just between you and me. And he realized he couldn't lead that song. And so for him, the best song of his life it stayed in the quiet place, for lack of a better phrase, in that secret place between him and the Lord. And even if you're writing songs that nobody else is hearing, God hears them, and he's pleased with that. And any gift that you have, even if it's just a small little gift in this area, if you use it, then it's pleasing to him. Like, he gave that to you for a reason. And so even if no one else hears it, even if the songs are bad, he loves it. And just any of you who are parents, your kid brings a picture that they painted, the little stick figures, and this is you, Dad, or you, Mom. You go, oh, yep, looks just like me. And up on the fridge it goes. And not to be cheesy, but even if it's not the greatest song in the world, the fact that you used your gift is important, and it means something. So just will leave that as an encouragement for people.
That's awesome. That's so important to remember, and remembering why we do this, and the joy comes from just operating in that again, that identity of who we are versus what we do. And thank you, Matt, for helping us remember that, and for all the awesome insight. So make sure you check out everything Matt has to offer. Go look into the intensive, go look into the book, go look into songwritersadvocate.com, and I'm sure you'll enjoy everything you get there. Matt, thank you so much for speaking with us today, and wish you nothing but the best with all you have going on for you and your family, and excited to see where it all goes.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed that. I really appreciate Matt taking his time to share with us and help us to see some things from a fresh perspective. Matt has a school that is awesome, the songwritersadvocate.com. You can find out everything there. He's offering an intensive on April 18th. And if you sign up by April 11th, that payment for the intensive works as a deposit towards a future 6-week online school that he offers. Check out the Songwriters Advocate book, which you can also get from his website, and just follow him on social and sign up for his email list. He has a lot of awesome content to offer songwriters. If you're a worship leader or a pastor or on a worship team that you want your church to write music that is specific to your church, and you just need help getting started, reach out. I have a program where I specifically take worship teams through a process of learning to write their own songs, giving them a plan, giving them a schedule, helping them stick to a writing routine so that eventually you're releasing songs to your church. But then not stopping there, I set up a plan where you're getting into the studio, you're recording, you're releasing music to your church that they can listen to and they can be excited about. And so if that's something you believe you're supposed to do and just don't know where to get started, reach out. You can email me at kevinkeen@gmail.com. Let me know you're interested, and we can talk about your specific needs. Thanks again to Matt. Thank you to you for listening. Keep writing, keep creating. If we can do that, then we've really accomplished 90% of the goal right there. I hope these are beneficial to you. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to hear, any topics you want to dive into. If you have not yet grabbed my Killer Melody Checklist, go to soundstoliveby.com/checklist and get that now. It'll help you write better melodies. And as always, stay safe, stay hopeful, and keep writing. We'll see you next time.